All right, welcome everyone. This is Peter Hahn. I wanted to share with you guys a package I just received today from Wacom, obviously, and I wanted to get in there and see what exactly this was. I had talked to one of the representatives over there, and they had mentioned maybe wanted to have me do another impression video, a couple of thoughts and demos with this product that they sent me. Now, again, like I said, I have no idea exactly what this thing is. They had mentioned it to me, but I didn't really get to research it. I was out of town, so I figured we'll take a look now that it's actually here on my table. And this is basically just an unboxing to get a sense as to what we have to play with. And I may hook it up to my laptop after we open this up, kind of look into the interior, and I'll see the effects of whether or not this is a useful product as an artist, professional, student, whatever the case is. So getting rid of the box, let's take a look at what we actually have. This is the Wacom One Creative Pen Display. A couple of additional things includes a bonus software pack, okay. From the looks of it, obviously very much like a Cintiq with a stylus. Does have a stand, loophole for the pen. The weight of it, pretty light. Basic setup, and the package as it is. Pretty straightforward as a Wacom product. Again, 13.3 inches diagonally across the display. Full HD, 1920 by 1080, so it's not 4K. Still, could be quite useful in terms of mobility. Has a 90-degree stand. This is a battery-free pen, and of course it uses NTSC color sets. So let's open up this package. The box aside for now. Let's get started. It says connect Wacom One to your computer and plug into power. Obviously install for the drivers, registration, all that kind of stuff. Let's take away this top pack that is in a standard kind of sleeve, and it's very similar in scale and size to an iPad. Let me just kind of shift the light a little. Let's bring over actually even an iPad. I'd be kind of curious to see what the size dimension of something like this would be next to that particular product. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can kind of see what we have here. Okay, so this is the iPad. This is an last generation version of the iPad. And this is just to give us a sense of scale. So this is the 12.9 inch second generation iPad Pro. So in comparison to size, we can kind of see also width. Pretty similar. The Wacom is slightly thicker. It's got some appropriate buttons of power, connections over here. This looks like a USB-C. Has a built-in pen holder, piece of fabric. On the other side, no connections. On the underside, no connections. On the back end, you see this white plastic, Wacom One. Here's a stand, flip out. Pretty nice and clean. Oh, interesting. You actually have the stylus pen replacements, nibs, right there. Let's put this over here on the side. This is the stylus. So let's compare this stylus with a standard Cintiq. Lengthwise, pretty close, a little bit longer with the extra button, back button on the Cintiq. And the Cintiq that I use is the 24 HD. In terms of width, or diameter that is. The original Cintiq is just a little bit more broad. Material wise, it's very similar. This has a bit more of a matte, more grippier, where this is a bit more slick. It has two button functions. This also has two button functions. Doesn't seem to be as much of a bounce to the nib, where the Cintiqs have a slight bounce pressure to it. So you can kind of feel it give slightly when you press against surfacing. Very lightweight. It, I guess, sits well on in the hand. As it describes, we have the cable which goes to HDMI, which has then a USB port, which I'm assuming is USB. That goes to also the computer. This is our actual power source. Here's all the necessary cables and whatnot. I don't think there's really anything else inside here except possibly booklets. And looks like we don't have that either. So looks like the booklets are right there. Instructionals, warranty information, I'm sure. Here we have a little extra, oh, it's an adapter for power. And we'll just hold on to all this stuff for the moment. All right, cool. Looks like that has the another power plug inside there, which is also USB based. USB based, and that plugs in there. So it looks like you can actually charge this off of a USB port, which could potentially be things like batteries as well. You have an external large capacity battery. So as I come in with the Wacom Cintiq, this one has had a little bit of use, and as we can see with the cables kind of out of the way, this does have the back stand attached to it. Here is that largest Cintiq. Let me see if I can kind of zoom out just slightly a bit more. And we'll sit this right on top, and it's pretty much the size of the screen. And so this one is distinctly heavier than this one here. The newer product of the One, definitely much more capable in terms of just having in the hand, whereas the other mobile version of it, the smaller Cintiq, which is not necessarily supposed to be just, you know, a mobile carry. It is supposed to be a standalone where you're sitting on a table on a desk, established somewhere, but it is just a lower end cost to this particular model. But this one, the One, fits right on top. Actually, you know, again, slightly smaller in terms of screen size, but I think in terms of just being active traveling, could be a lot better. All right, so now that we have the product kind of in place, what I'll probably end up doing is grabbing my laptop, hooking everything up, and seeing exactly how this runs. So let's get that going. All right, so we have the Wacom One officially now hooked up to my laptop. This is a USB output going into my laptop with the HDMI and USB port. Normally, it does have the addition to the power cable, which would hook up directly to this AC plug, which also is USB port. And the way it looks is at this other end, we have two cables that are coming off. So we have essentially, this is where the display is going. This right here is output coming in from the Wacom towards that direction for the laptop. This is the power cable, and this power cable at the very moment is actually plugged into my power bank. So I wanted to test this out, not plugging it into the wall, but actually plugging it into a battery. This battery right now is about mostly charged. This is a larger capacity. This is a RAV Power Super C series, 26,800 mAh, portable charger, and I've directly connected this Wacom into this battery. We're going to see if it turns on. And you heard the ding. It's connected to my laptop, and there we go. We're going to install everything because this is a fresh boot. Obviously there's no connection right now, so I'm going to install the drivers real quickly first, and we'll see how this runs as a drawing tool. Alright, now that I have the driver downloaded and installed, simple, just going onto Google, typing in Wacom.com, and going into their download area, looking up the specific product of the Wacom One, and you get the actual then driver, which now it seems to be running fine. Let's start up Photoshop, and we'll see how well this thing handles motion and movements in terms of brush strokes and whatnot. We'll do a couple of demos and drawings over here. I'll probably do a little bit of rotation here and there, but I'll keep it standard on the stands that it's on right now, which seems to be at a comfortable angle. The pen, I'll give you a couple of thoughts based on how it just feels on the surfacing. This still is running off of my battery at the moment. Doesn't seem like it's draining it too much. laptop is also on battery, on high performance. And now we'll zoom in a little bit closer so we can get a bit clear drawings established. So let's create new. We'll go to the standard 8x10, 300 dpi. Let's enlarge the screen, and surfacing feels pretty good so far. Let's rotate the screen. Now, the one thing I did notice automatically is that on the stylus, it does have the button selections right here, but it only is the back button that you can click. So the front button doesn't actually depress, so you only literally have one button. So getting out of Photoshop real quickly for a second, if we go to our drivers, we can probably calibrate this. This is on right click right now, which actually I would prefer to keep it on. And everything else should be solid. I could potentially calibrate this really quickly first to make sure everything is on point. Click OK. Doesn't seem to be any kind of lag at the moment. Let's go back into Photoshop. And let's select the brush that I want. And this is another issue that I've been noticing, is that the right click doesn't register as the right click that I want. So let's just go to the direct brush selections. And we'll go to dry media. Let's draw a little bit. These are just standard Photoshop brushes. Let's just go to dark value. Let's go to a new layer. So no delay in response just yet. What I do realize is that as I am drawing, let me zoom in and you can kind of see what's happening. You'll see the cursor right here. And what you're seeing right now is that the screen is slanted slightly, so the camera is angling inwards from the top. So what you are seeing is not directly overhead because of slight angling pitched forward. So as I draw though, from touch, you'll notice that the cursor drags behind the stylus ever so much, and then you're seeing the actual line keeping up with it. So this is a potential nagging issue for a lot of people when they draw digitally, is that this is not like drawing with a pen to paper where what you are touching and drawing with is what you are getting. There is a slight drag behind the stylus. So even if I did it slower, if I do it slow, you'll see that one-to-one, okay, coming off of that cursor. Going a little bit faster, there's a slight drag to it. Now again, some people don't mind this, some people can't stand it. For myself personally, I really don't care. And doesn't really affect my process in any way. But I can understand why a lot of people would not like it as much. Let's get rid of all these strokes and actually just draw something out there real quickly. Let's make it a full screen. And let's place in a vehicle, maybe like a locomotive or some type. Using just one tool to draw. Let's construct. Throw in some lines, some shapes. Now I'm using my other hand to kind of cradle the underside of the Wacom. Constructing the drawing. Not going straight in to build this, showing that I can use this tool for the sketching purpose of the classes that I teach. So something like this for myself, I would prefer to use for demo purposes in class. I usually bring in a tablet, and with the tablet I would draw, using my laptop, and it's been a great tool to draw with. The downside, of course, is not having a screen to draw on, which I actually do like. A lot of people still like to paint with a tablet, but when it comes to drawing, I really do prefer creative tablets like this. Whether it's the iPad Pro with Procreate, using the Cintiq, whether it's the Cintiq Pros for like the 24-inch, the larger ones, or like these kind of creative displays, which really didn't capture me because I obviously had to carry my laptop around. But of course, when it comes to official working environments, whether it's a class, working inside of an office or a cafe, working on personal projects or whatever the case is. Something like this, you know, compared to even the review that I did prior to the other display piece, which is a full Cintiq, but a smaller scale version of it, the weight saving on this is actually quite dramatic. It is very much lighter than the previous one. Now, I haven't actually researched cost, and I'm going to do that right now with you guys because I myself am in the dark in terms of what this thing goes for, and if it's still something, you know, approachable to students, if it's something that's viable for professionals, if it's something that's worth even looking at. And I want to give, obviously, my honest opinion based on this. So I'm also going to go into, hold on one second, I have my other computer in front of me. So they're introducing the new Wacom One, and we'll go to then Best Buy, just as a comparison for pricing at the moment. And the pricing right now for one of these 13.3-inch display is going for $399.99. So $399.99. So $400 essentially. Add tax to it, depending on where you are state-wise. So for a small display at $400. Now it's only a display, it's not a standalone computer. You will need a laptop, obviously. I think honestly any standard laptop should be powerful enough to, you know, as long as you can run Photoshop, should be good enough. Now of course the other Cintiq that I just showed you in comparison is a larger display, a full Cintiq. Has, I think it runs for about still $600, I believe. So looking at this one with more details, I'm looking for information on this right now. So on Best Buy it kind of tells us, again, this is a full HD 1080 display. I'm looking for pressure sensitivity, which should be standard. No additional information. And so far, at the moment, you know, it doesn't seem to have any delay or lag or sluggishness to it, which most of the Cintiqs have run fairly well. What I will take a note on is that the stylus, it does have a slight rubbery, you know, kind of tip to it, where the other styluses have a little bit more of a plasticky feel. So this being just a little bit more rubbery, has, you can kind of have this tactile response of a slight gummy feel to it, which again, some people could like, some people may not like. The gumminess, the softness, or the rubberiness to it does kind of make it give a bit more of a tactile response to the glass and the surfacing, where if I use this plastic version of the original Cintiq, it kind of slides on the surfacing. It's a bit more slick, which people sometimes don't appreciate or want because, again, it doesn't give you any kind of response like a piece of paper would, which you can then control things like pressure and whatnot. So this one does have a little bit more of a toothier feel because the tip of the stylus is different than the Cintiq. Now, do I like it more than the Cintiq version of it? It's not too bad. I would say, depending on use, long-term wise, if it, you know, is sustainable in terms of long-term use, it doesn't get ground down really quickly from heavy use, then I would say it's a relatively good feeling so far. I don't mind the Cintiq nibs if it's a little bit slippier or, you know, kind of like sharper in terms of movement. The speed of it isn't necessarily a problem for me either. But like I said, for some people that could make quite big of a difference, depending on what product you're kind of also looking for too. Just kind of establishing general perspectives. Horizon line will be going into here. All the technical engineering parts will go down there. Extra car back in this direction. Just establishing just general shapes to kind of place in information. We'll also place in a couple of bits of scale, possibly movement. The tracks down over here. Again, horizon line is back over on this side. We'll place in some landscape features, possibly maybe some additional kind of foreground elements as well too. But just kind of filling in the scene just slightly. Here's some effects coming off of the chimney. And slowly building more and more information as we go. I'm not using reference images for something like this where it's kind of an amalgamation of multiple kinds of trains that I've seen before. It's not a specific model. over time, with much more practice, you're able to retain the visual vocabulary of information of archetypes of specific subject matter, whether it's about certain vehicles or classes of groups of animals. You start to understand the archetypes between how they're built, and by remembering some of the major elements behind what this subject matter is, you're able to then kind of play with some of the detail work where it can resemble a specific model or a specific animal based on what you're drawing and depending on the subject matter. For the train and locomotive, again, I'm not thinking of any specific train or locomotive. It is just a combination of many things I've seen live in person and also through photographs and references that I've drawn countless times over the many years of sketching and drawing. A lot of the technical information will kind of be hidden through motion effects, possibly just kind of darkening through hatching, indication of details and features, just showing enough information for the viewer to get kind of what's going on, which helps us become more efficient in drawing and sketching. And from there, we're able to then move quicker, move faster, be more, confident through the actual sketch. And so many things that are out there in observational studies, whether through everyday objects, historical items, whatever the case is, if it's a mass-produced thing, there's going to be basically a system that you can follow based on its constructions of proportion and shapes and details that can be re-implemented again through other models, which are very similar. So here we have, again, majority of the information established. Let's just put a frame around this entire thing. Let's kind of pump in some darks a little bit here and there using hatching methods. So far, the stylus, the width of it, diameter, actually feels really comfortable. These original styluses have a little bit more diameter thickness to them, which can feel more comfortable to larger hands, my hands being just a little bit smaller. Both feel fine, but this has a little bit more of like an actual pen feel. It fits to the diameter of many pens that I use, whether it's like high-techs, ballpoints, felt tip pens. They feel like actual materials that I would use on hand, on paper. So that can be quite a nice thing, touch-wise, because it doesn't necessarily change the grip in terms of how tight or how loose, or if it feels uncomfortable based on something that I'm not really used to on the grip side of things. So it does feel somewhat familiar in terms of just the physical element of holding the tool. Let's kind of compress some of the darks inside here. We're going to focus our attention to this particular area right there. Let's undo that. In terms of questions about methods and practices on how to draw and such, one of the main key ones would be, should I start with digital like this? Could I, should I maybe afford or spend a little bit of money on these kinds of tool sets and practice my drawing that way? Or should I just go straight pen to traditional tool sets like papers and sketchbooks and pencils and ballpoints? And my current response to that is honestly, all of it. Use all of it. I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. I will definitely recommend that you start with analog tool sets because it gives you certain training or certain education based on the physical motions, the response to the tools, being able to be more mindful as you are drawing, where sometimes if you're drawing with pens and if you're studying through the methods that I teach, we specifically use felt tip pens. It can be a very difficult tool to somewhat master or feel comfortable in because unlike in Photoshop, we can undo this stuff, right? Where using paper and pens, quite obviously, you can't undo it. But that lesson to learn of being able to let go that part of control and being able to then repeat methods and practices to continue to gain the sense of memory, the visual vocabulary that we've just been talking about, I think is a big aspect of learning that you need to go through from learning the analog tools. I think a lot of the artists out there will always recommend the analog tool sets. But again, like I said, that's also to say that using these kinds of tool sets, would it downgrade you or be a negative effect in your growth period? And I don't think it would be. As long as you're being mindful about how you're training and some of the methods of way you should think about your approach, The tool then is the tool. You just use it in that way. You shouldn't get dependent on some of the actual luxuries that digital can give you. You should be aware of how to use them properly, and of course take advantage of them when available. But at the same time, like I said, I think there are certain things that you might want to pick up on as you are using traditional tool sets. Still, if I was a student, would I consider getting one of these? If I had the money to spend for $400 on a creative display with a with a decent laptop, maybe support from family or through means of saving, yeah, I would. If I was at Art Center in college, back in the day when I was a student, what did I use? I mainly used a desktop computer. I had a Cintiq, not Cintiq, I'm sorry, the Wacom tablets, the old ones back in the day, the Intuos, like 2s and stuff like that. And they were great tools. And obviously I would save and spend money on those things because eventually, training with the analog tool sets, we had to learn more digital because the industry standard requires it. So the sooner you're able to jump on that from the lessons you have from the analog, the better off you will potentially be. So with something like this, would I have saved up, which this honestly will be around the same price as one of those Intuos tablets back in those days. This is in early 2000s. So to be quite honest, this is a quite nice product in that sense. Obviously now this is 15 years ahead of time, and so does something like this, again, like I said, really apply to students going to school these days? And I think actually it still does. I think it works really well for lessons and learning, taking notes and actually doing the homework and exercises, whether through drawing or painting, digital tool sets, in combination of course of continuing to really explore those analog side of things, analog meaning the traditional tool sets. So the proper balance is everything. One is you shouldn't have more than the other. For people that are starting digital already, are you too late to go back to traditional methods? Of course not. And is there a wrong way to begin? Not necessarily. The idea is that did you just begin? So if you've already explored your side of the educational parts in art and design, you've already now kind of begun. Now it's about being exposed to more information, more methods and tool sets to be able to diversify the way you express your drawings or paintings or whatever the case is. And this particular product could help in that sense in terms of exploring different ways of being able to get stuff more effectively onto whatever file set or page or method of process to get things down. So again, like I said, as a student, I would say this would be a very, very attractive product to definitely want to consider saving for. And I can't necessarily deny that aspect of it. So as a professional now also then, would I still consider getting something like this? Now at home, I would still rather much use my 24 HD display larger piece that's hooked up to my desktop. If I was traveling, so if I was, let's say, working on client work, contract stuff, teaching my own classes online, which I will be extensively traveling through this year, I will most likely take this with me. I actually said I was going to take the other Cintiq with me last year, but I ended up not doing so, mainly because eventually as I started packing, I found that the size was a bit too cumbersome. I didn't take it with me. This one being much smaller and definitely much lighter with less cumbersome wires all over the place. It's literally one cable that kind of splits off for the power and the inputs. It's definitely a more manageable. Now you could say that, well, that's what you said, with the other product, but having actually using that physically and what I'm comparing to now, I would say that definitely this is much more mobile friendly. Now, is this product more, I guess, powerful or possibly better as hardware piece, digital piece compared to the regular Cintiqs? I think a lot of it is very much dictated based on your price points. Based on your needs, whether you're professional or not. If you are a professional artist, I would say investing more on the Cintiq, which has a better display, could possibly do for you because obviously this is a certain size maximum. As a student, I would probably jump on this one. I wouldn't necessarily go for the Cintiq unless you had the finances and the means to afford a $600 piece compared to, let's say, a $400 piece. So a cost savings of $200+ for something that is very, very similar. Yes, we're talking about slight minute differences of scale, possibly the stylus having additional buttons, the color of the monitor display being just a bit richer on the other one too. I would say again that payoff, maybe as a professional, might make sense, but as a student, I think honestly I would go this route instead. Now it's been about a year since I reviewed the other piece, and this one is a recent product that's come out. So is this a consideration of moving backwards for Wacom? I don't necessarily think so. I hope Wacom will continue to really explore the different more mobile products and more cost-friendly products for students that are out there. I think a lot of the professionals are relatively well established as to what they want from their products. So, how much more refinement can you do on Cintiq? Yes, you can offer higher resolutions, lighter weights, better materials, better glass, better, color sets, or whatever the case is. But I think really focusing on younger generations, because now you have so many more younger people exploring this art and design field, and not every single one of them can afford a full-size Cintiq or even the more affordable version of it. And yes, I'm not saying that this is necessarily super cheap either for someone who's, let's say, coming out of high school or going into college and can afford just $400 on a hardware piece. But like I said, if you take care of it, it could be potentially a college career level of extension of life that this product can offer you. And I think it's a great entry tool, and for you to get more familiar as to whether something like this is even necessary for a lot of your artistic needs. So I think this is probably the most safest route, the most least amount of risk in terms of the cost to product, and that's why I would say that this is definitely a much more better route than the other Cintiq that we took a look at last time. So here's this locomotive now kind of moving along. And again, like I said, surface feels smooth. I don't think I would need any kind of protector on it. I know some people like to wear the gloves so that you don't get necessarily things like streaks or sweat if you have heavier hands or hot hands and stuff like that too. Where this is not moving too much as I press down on it. It's not sliding as well too because of the rubbery stops underneath the Wacom One. It seems to hold it in place fairly well. It hasn't shifted at all. It's comfortable to hold the stylus. To give you another size comparison, here is the stylus on my Samsung Note 10, and here is the Wacom One stylus. Here is then the stylus for the Cintiq. So when I draw on my phone, actually this is quite comfortable too. If they had made a stylus for smaller tablets like that at this scale, I would really like that actually. The pencil, on the iPad Pros, I do quite like. I think the reaction to painting on Procreate and stuff feels quite nice. The old pencils, I do find the surfacing a bit too round and too hard. It hurts the fingers when you hold it for a prolonged amount of time because they're also very heavy. The new pencils do feel a lot lighter, and so I think they're much more long-term friendly use-wise, good. But here already, this one feels really, really nice. Actually, I'm quite liking the stylus. Again, it has that bit of a rubbery feel to it, and I think it would kind of grow on some people. I know that the Cintiq styluses also do have different nibs available for you, flex nibs, rubbery nibs, and stuff like that. I haven't customized them in any way. I keep it stock the way it is, but like I said, the one out of the box for the One feels pretty good. This is just running off of Photoshop using one brush, one size, and I haven't zoomed in, zoomed out, but so far feels pretty good. Let me zoom out with the camera. You can see the product again. Very super lightweight. Even just holding it with the edge of my fingers feels really good. I think if they also offered basically a grip that goes around, actually, you know what? I have that on me. Let me see if this works. So this product is called Lapworks, and this goes with my iPad, but it has extendable arms, and it has a little loop for the hand that you can slide along in and hold your tablet on top. But for the Cintiq, let's see if this will actually work. So you gotta stretch it all the way, but it does clamp on the ends, And on the back of the Wacom One, you can see the handle of it. So if I slide my hand along the back end, gripping it, now I'm holding it on the palm, and it can rotate very easily. Now it's got that one wire, which is kind of in the way, but it's not too obstructing the flow. So this feels pretty good now. Now I can just draw with my hand out like this, and almost, again, like I said, it's not touch display, so you have to come back and use the laptop for keys and whatnot. But now, I can rotate if I want to. I can rotate this way if I want to. So I don't necessarily have to go into Photoshop and rotate my canvas. I can rotate the actual Cintiq because it's such a lightweight tool. So now this feels pretty good. Let's go to some other brushes real quickly. Hard round opacity. Let's just go to a value. Let's put a new layer underneath. And we can add some washes, much like a watercolor effect. Zoom out a little bit. What I'd probably use the stylus for then is possibly the hand tool to shift it around. So let's actually try to get that. Let's go back to the drivers. Let's use the keystroke. Let's go to space. So now I can easily just shift it around by holding the stylus. And I can just kind of do washes again. If I need to get, kind of a different area, I can do so. Zooming in obviously would be a bit of an issue, like the touch, you kind of want to go back in much like your phone and tablets and just kind of go in there to see if you can actually zoom in or not. If there's a way that we can add things like that to future products, touch displays, I think would be kind of nice. I do find touch displays to be quite handy, especially if you have minimal buttons to use. Or possibly even on the back end of the Cintiq, if we had additional buttons somewhere laid out, that if you're cradling on the one end of it, you have buttons that you can assign. I know that the Cintiqs have done that before, but with the Wacom One being a much more budget-friendly product, stuff like that may not be possible manufacturing side-wise, but who knows? Maybe that's a potential possibility into the future. I think button assignments can be kind of nice. There's a little bit of a squeak off the stylus. I don't know if you heard. That was kind of a little irritating right there. So I'd say a bit more use will kind of grind down the surfacing, and you'll get a much smoother, less squeakier noise of a stylus. Hopefully you won't hear that too much. But with a very light touch, you'll kind of hear it. Battery's running out, so we're going to end here soon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the exploration of this product. This is the Wacom One. Just got it in, didn't really know what to expect, but pleasantly surprised. Definitely much more affordable than some of the other products. And I would say personally for myself, I could see myself using it to some degree, especially if I'm traveling, teaching, and whatnot. And this is obviously more for home use, office use, and being more stationary. It's not a completely mobile-free product, but definitely in terms of capability-wise, I do quite like it. It feels ergonomically great. I think that the design, the contrasting of the dark into the light on the background is really cool. Different color variations would also be a lot of fun. Casings that might be available could be great additions too. Changes towards a different kind of stand, or possibly being able to change out this flap, which I don't like. This I never liked. It tags, it kind of hooks on things and rips, and so I'm not a big fan of that aspect of it. So hopefully you guys can share this and kind of spread it out there for other people to take a look at, other students that might want to explore the possibilities of different products. That might be good for them cost-wise. And like I said, into the future, I'll try to do more of these kind of impression videos and reviews, thoughts, and also demos. Kind of stay tuned for more of that, hopefully, at some time. But like I said, I'll be doing more live streams on Twitch, usually Mondays and Thursday nights. and I'll post a few of those full-length live streams on YouTube as well. And of course, if you guys have any additional thoughts or comments, please place them below. I'll try to respond if I can to some of them, but normally I usually just move on to the next product. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Appreciate that.